With so much uncertainty surrounding President Biden's run for re-election, new NBC News reporting reveals the mission has shifted for many big money donors away from Biden and instead to shore up a congressional firewall against the chance of another Donald Trump presidency. NBC's Sahil Kapoor is one of the authors of that new NBC reporting. David Jolly is a former Republican congressman from Florida and an MSNBC political analyst. So, Sahil, who is leading this firewall strategy and how exactly is it working?
It's happening organically on the money side, Chris. Democratic donors are angry and spooked about, as they see the prospect of another Donald Trump presidency rising since that debate. Some of them have openly told House Democratic lawmakers and candidates that they see them as their only hope for keeping Donald Trump in check if he comes back to the White House. Liberal groups, meanwhile, are telling us that they're seeing a surge in donations to down-ballot races, to their down-ballot programs. Some of those groups are openly pitching donors on a message of think the unthinkable. A Trump presidency is very possible. And in that scenario, the House, they say, is the only hope of a Democratic firewall to prevent total Republican control. The theory here is that the median House district, which is in the suburbs, is friendlier to Democrats, more winnable for Democrats than is the Electoral College, which gives disproportionate weight to rural areas. What would a total Republican government mean? Take a listen to how Democratic Senator Michael Bennet described it to me.
What would a Republican trifecta with Trump at the top look like?
What it would look like is a clear and present danger to the United States of America. What it would look like would be a complete compromise of our standing in the world. These are not political questions. These are moral questions.
And of course, the difference is if Democrats have the House under a hypothetical Trump presidency, it gives them a real check to control Donald Trump's legislative agenda. It gives them oversight and subpoena powers to investigate his administration. And there are a couple of reasons that this is growing. Democrats in the Senate and House races are currently running well ahead of Joe Biden. Just today, there was a poll out in Wisconsin where the Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin is up 5 points against a Republican opponent, while President Biden, in a head-to-head with Donald Trump, is down 5 points. Finally, Chris, there's the fact that Democrats were caught flat-footed in 2016 when Donald Trump came into that election being the underdog. Democrats ended up watching Trump win with a full Republican trifecta, win both the House and the Senate. They don't want to be caught flat-footed this time around, and at the very least, they want to make sure Trump doesn't end up in power with what they perceive would be a submissive Republican Congress.
David, I was in touch this morning with folks at a big grassroots organization, Swing Left. Their volunteer engagement numbers are way up compared to 2018 and 2022. Right. 2020, of course, was COVID, so the metrics are a little skewed there. But bottom line, how much will following grassroots donations, whether it's donating money or donating time, tell us about November and where the rank and file are putting their time and attention?
Yeah, it is critically important. It's a great barometer, Chris. I think the question is it fear or is it confidence? Is it aspiration to really elect Democrats and secure Democratic values? I think coming off the last 2 weeks, it's probably a healthy combination of the two. And here's why it is critically important. Look, I was a candidate in 2016, a sitting Republican who split from Donald Trump on his first run. We were on the ballot together. It is enormously difficult to run a race, even in your home district, where there is dissonance between the House candidate and the presidential nominee. And so part of the reality is these House candidates now need more money. So Sahil pointed out, we're not necessarily seeing the drag right now, but we might. And what we do know for House members particularly, they need money. House Democrats need money to run their race their way and ensure they get elected. And then secondly, it is a firewall. I mean, if you want to stop Donald Trump and Project 2025, elect Joe Biden, or if he steps aside, elect the Democratic nominee, but elect a Democratic-controlled House that won't pass Project 2025 legislation, and that will be there to handle impeachment should impeachment be necessary. The move to House Democrats is important because 100 days ago, there was a confidence among House Democrats, and rightfully so, that Democrats had a good shot at taking a majority. All bets are off over the last 2 weeks. Nobody truly knows. So they're shoring up their resources to go into November.
Look, they only need 4 seat swing. But having said that, not easy to accomplish, David. And we haven't heard from a lot of them. The vast majority of them have had nothing to say about whether or not whether Joe Biden should stay or should they go. I was just having this conversation with Simone Sanders Townsend. A few exceptions, right? Like a John Tester running in Montana, tough race, put out a statement. But how tough is the decision they're making, and how long can they put off directly telling their constituents, this is where I stand?
Yeah, all politics is local, right? I think what you're seeing from John Tester and Sherrod Brown is the reality of some really tough races for those Democrats. And I would expect their language to stay about the same. What Democrats need writ large is a unifying moment. And in some ways, it doesn't even matter what that unifying moment is. They need to be a unified team. So I would suggest right now, Joe Biden has said he's not getting out of that race. So unless somebody's got a plan to flip 2,000 committed delegates at the convention, Joe Biden's your guy. So you're either with a criminal candidate in Donald Trump who will roll back your rights, or you're with Joe Biden who's going to fight for them. Democrats can unify, but they must if they want to win.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.